It's wonderful to have the confidence to know that you can ask a question. And someone might not know the answer either, but they might be able to get you to a person who does. And that's, right, a gift in itself. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael. We're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today I'm super excited because this last week I went to an asset management conference that GoBundance hosted. And at first I was super nervous. I was like, goodness, I'm going to be the only woman there. I don't really know what to expect. How's the conversation going to go? Like, what are the levels and types of people that are going to be there, just in like experience, like how am I going to feel about it all? But I am so happy that I went, and I am really excited to be able to share a lot of the takeaways that I got from it. These are takeaways that you could think about, that you could implement, that you could give suggestions for. You can use this with, a single family home. You can use it for your short-term rental portfolio, like however you want to like splice it up and take it and how it can work for you, even if you want to implement it like with your property manager, because some of these things are items that we are implementing already, but just things we discussed, stuff that we can't implement at all, but topics that I want to be able to share with you, or ideas that I want to be able to share with you. And some of them are just like, wow, I just haven't ever thought about this ever. So can I make this work? Can I not make it work? But it was a lot of fun. So we're going to break the asset management workshop into 2 separate episodes. Some topics might feel like they could have commingled, but we did the best that we could to try to make it into 2 and have it just kind of work out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of great information that we have to provide to you. There's a lot of great takeaways, as Susie mentioned, but we want to make sure that we don't overload you, the listener, and the adventurous family with too much information and kind of split it up across 2 weeks. So what's the first thing you want to talk about, Susie?
So what I want to talk about is like some stuff that kind of feels like resident focused. And I guess what I want to open it with is like how to never lose a resident again. Wow, that might seem like the best thing, right? That's something that we all want to do. We really don't want to lose residents if they're great. But a lot of what we do, right? Like we close them to get the lease signed. And at the renewal time, we really focus on the renewal. But what are we doing the first 30 days, the first 90 days, and then like 6 months in? Are we taking a step back and looking at their work orders 6 months in? Like, are we able to get them done in a timely manner? If not, are we communicating with the resident, right? Because if we have sold them and we've gotten their lease, but then we completely forget about them. When it comes to renewal, when we try to get them to stay, why would they want to stay, right? Like we haven't been communicating with them at all. We haven't checked in with them at all. So why would they want to stay?
Yeah, I think a big thing here to point out is for us, we've noticed the biggest thing we've seen as well as like when a resident's not happy with the maintenance and how it's being performed, how timely it's being addressed and things like that. Those are the biggest things that we see residents will leave for, right? Like, I know it'd be great to keep a resident forever because it minimizes turn costs and things like that. But when a resident leaves for, when they move out of state or they got a new job somewhere or they move into their own house or something like that, those are totally fine, right? Those are things outside of our control. But when they leave because of things that are inside our control, such as, say, maintenance is a big thing. I say that again, or like cleanliness of the property, right? If they don't feel like we're taking care of the property or that you're taking care of the property, residents can have that sense, right? And they're just like, oh, they're just letting things go around here. They don't care about me either, right? So like it's their home. You got to think about it that way, right? And then also maintenance, right? So like responding to maintenance requests in a timely manner. And if not, like Susie said, making sure that you're communicating with the resident why we're not able to get to it in a timely manner, right? Maybe it's a part that we're waiting on, things like that.
Totally. Yeah. The next one, right? And it kind of ties into all of this because like, well, how am I going to know that my staff is actually communicating with the residents, right? Because even during this workshop, a lot of, I guess, the trouble that the owner can get into with the property manager is that the property manager is telling the owner one thing that isn't true, right? And the owner is expecting a result, but the result never comes. So one way to ensure that this occurs is that you can do a resident survey that only has like 3 questions, right? So it's not a lot. You can do it at the 30-day mark. You could do it at the 90-day mark. You could do it at the 6-month mark. You could do it after a larger maintenance request or even after a resident event. When the maintenance guy or woman is in the unit, right, and asks for that survey, that can always work. At the resident event, like, hey, I know you had a really great time. I would love to know your feedback on the rest of the property. property. But you can also incentivize the residents with a credit. I mean, it could be $5, it could be $10. Like, you're not doing it to every resident every single month. But even with that, I mean, if you have something higher than like 5 or 10% response ratio, that's pretty phenomenal anyway. So, but what you can gain from that is like invaluable. So what you would do is that you would create a Google form that you own, right? So that some of the Google forms, or if a resident survey comes back and it has a less than exciting review back, it doesn't accidentally get deleted by the property manager because you own it and you'll be able to see all of the responses. And so those 3 questions that you'll have is like, how happy are you? It could just be like a 1 to 5, a click button press. Would you refer friends or family? Yes or no? Or you could even do how likely would you be to refer friends or family, 1 to 5 again, right? And then the final question is, what is something you would like to see change at the property? Yes, this is something that they would have to type, or you can even put in multiple buttons for them to press, right? Like faster maintenance request times, less trash in the area. I'd like to have the playground fixed or painted. What are other things? Oh, there's a leak that this building continues to have. There's a pothole in the parking lot. The fence in the back has a
hole in it.
Yeah, a hole in it. And I see people come in and out every day. Like, I guess the list could go on now that I keep thinking about it, right? Like, nobody picks up their dog poo. I wish the pool was open more often. Who knows? So, I mean, this is a great spot for them to be able to type something. But the easiest way to get this out is that the manager can just send out a text to the residents with a link. Our property management company uses AppFolio. So I know that our property manager, right, can pretty much just input the link and send it out to everyone. It's not like she is sending out,
individual text messages.
88 text messages or 112 text messages, right? It's just one big text.
Yeah, and another thing too, take it one step further, is if you can't text, maybe have your maintenance guy, after he goes in to do a maintenance request, right? Like maybe you create a survey specifically for that maintenance request.
Or while he's in there.
Or while he's in there, yeah. And then all you have to do is create a QR code for the resident to just scan, right? And he carries around a little card with the QR code on it. Resident can scan that, go straight to the Google form, and then you can see all those responses, right, as they're recorded, which is really cool. I know one of our maintenance technicians has been really good at like, hey, if you enjoy a service that you were provided, please leave a review. And so there's actually quite a few Google reviews, but after he's serviced whatever, and he has really good, more Google reviews for the maintenance guy than anything else about the property, right, which is pretty cool. But taking it one step further, obviously that would be getting people to do Google review, but this is just a survey of how to kind of get an idea of what kind of maintenance requests are being filled and how, if they're being filled in a timely manner, and the quality of the service and things like that.
Yeah, and like think of the advantage of the maintenance personnel asking versus the property manager. Yes, the property manager can hit more people through that text, but the maintenance is seen every single day. The maintenance is in people's apartments, in their homes. So like he's really in their intimate space. They see that the maintenance guy is picking up trash at the property. He's making it a more inviting space. He is fixing issues. Like when you think about like, right, the brain response, the person who the residents see helping them the most is the person that they are more likely to connect with and or like do a favor that is asked. And so it is great when the maintenance guy does get those Google reviews. Again, different from the survey, but Google reviews are also something great to ask for. Like when you have prospects that are looking online and looking at the reviews, which I think that they are, because I mean, I'm one of those person who has to read all of the reviews for everything just so that I know. Not for myself, like for the properties. I mean, I do that too, but like when I actually want to eat at a restaurant or live somewhere new, right? I take those very seriously. And when you see that good maintenance, there's a good maintenance personnel on site, like it just makes a huge, huge difference because that your home is being taken care of.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I have one more suggestion or add on, I guess, to surveys. One thing that we've had success doing at our properties after we take over a new property is, we can write a business plan without interacting with the residents. Like we're going to say, hey, we're going to add a dog park. We're going to add a business center. We're going to add a playground or soccer field or something like that. Or, redo the basketball court, right? And then we send out a survey to the residents to find out which amenity they would prefer too. Yeah, it's still, you'd be surprised, like you still get significantly low response no matter what you do. But we have, as Susie mentioned, we have incentivized them as well in order to get more responses. So whether it's a $5 or $10 gift card to like Sonic or some kind of fast food restaurant, we usually get quite a bit of response if we incentivize them to fill it out. So
totally. So the next topic that I want to bring up, it does kind of match with our topic for this episode. It will also match with the topic for next episode. So I might just talk about it twice because this goes with the property management, like back house information, but it does also go with the residents. Something that we discussed was getting rid of that initial pet deposit and just charging a larger pet fee. Another thing that you could do is that if you own the washer and dryers at your laundry facility, how you could take away the coin operated part or the card operated part and have it technically be free, but you charge a laundry fee, right? So what this does is that it creates like an easier barrier to entry upon moving in, because moving in initially is very expensive. You have the move cost, whether you paid for movers to do it or not, right? Like the cost of your time, the cost of your gas, the cost if you have to help friends. I mean, even if your friends are just helping you, but you buy them beverages and food, like there is a high cost that goes to that. And so how can I make the move-in charge seem less at the beginning, right? Because when they are going from property to property and asking what rent is, if it's like, hey, your rent's going to be $12.50, and there's like Michael and I do a convenience fee, which is something that we can talk about a different day again. But like, no, yes, besides like the deposit, right, for the security, but there's no pet deposit, laundry is free. Like you really want to upsell it the best that you can. And when you hear like no extra deposits, other things are free, like it does shows the value of
what they're getting, what they're paying for.
Totally, right? And so like say you charge like a $250 pet deposit, but your pet rent is $25. What if you just made your pet rent $50, right? Like it makes up for itself.
Absolutely. And so speaking of like moving from deposits to fees as well, since we're on that topic, I mean, that's a great way to do it, right? Not only you get rid of the pet deposit, right? They think you're saying, oh, $100 pet deposit or increase their pet rent by $25. In 4 months, you're going to get that back, right? So, and which is great. But they think, hey, no pet deposit, great. It's just like a marketing scheme, right?
Right. I mean,
tactic, I should say.
Totally. And it happens to us all the time. It happens to us with cars. It happens to us with food, with clothes, right? Like more people are likely
pay now, pay later.
Yeah. Like buy something for sale, even if it's only like 50 cents off. I'm kind of amazed sometimes when the grocery store is like, oh, it's on sale. I was like, you lowered it 3 cents.
Yeah. It's like shopping at Kohl's. When you save more money than you actually spent, then you're in the black.
Black Friday.
So, yeah. I brought that up to elaborate on something else we started doing at our properties as well, and that is holding deposit. We used to charge a holding deposit if a resident wanted to hold a unit. Well, if they ended up canceling and not moving in, we'd have to give that holding deposit back, right? If they ended up moving in, then it was applied to like first month's rent or something like that. I forget. But what we started doing recently in the past 2-3 months, maybe earlier this year, it's April of 2024. Anyways, we started charging a holding fee. And so and this actually has twofold things. So one, if the resident cancels, they don't get that fee back. So a resident's more likely not to cancel because of that. And two, it goes right to our other income and it doesn't apply to their rent or anything like that. So if they want to hold a unit, because most of our properties are like, 90, high 95 to 100% occupied all the time. So there's minimal units to be found, basically. So it secures their place, but also it's adding income to our bottom line as well.
Totally. Yeah. So since we've kind of gone with the theme of like kind of what to implement before the resident moves in, or like what it's kind of like with the prospect part, where I'm going to keep going with that. A couple of other ideas that were thrown around is like doing an open house for showings. And this minimizes no-shows because like the property manager gets ready for their showings and then nobody shows up. So their brain has switched to a new task and then they have to switch back to another one. And I don't even know how long they wait for a resident to show up. But along with like the having an open house for showings, so what would that entail, right? So like if 4 people showed up, you're like, hey, our open house showings are Wednesday at 5 and Saturday at 11. I mean, you could make them whenever you want. You could have them once a week. You could have them never. But if they see multiple people showing up to view the same apartment, right, it creates like that FOMO and that scarcity. And you want the resident to think that there's an opportunity for them to lose out on the apartment. I mean, you do. That's how you get it rented. If they know that there's a ton of apartments and they're not in a hurry to move, there's no reason for them to be in a hurry to submit the application, to ask more questions. And so you want to try to prevent that from happening. So with that too, like Michael and I have a business center at all but one of our properties. And after the showings, encourage them to use that business center and to use that computer to fill out the application. Have them do it right there. Like, hey, we have a computer in our business center. The application, there's a tab. You can fill it out right now. I'd be happy to get you a beverage while you wait or while you fill that out. What can I get for you? When you've already given them, it's not like an opportunity for them to say no. I'm saying like, hey, I'm going to put you in this great spot. How can I accommodate you even more?
I love that idea. It's creating that FOMO because I was victim to that, if you will, when I was renting a place in Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is a very, very, very low vacancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in trying to find something that was, within reason and things like that, very difficult. So, I mean, this was close to 10 years ago now. But when I showed up, there was, I think, 5 or 6 other people there.
Okay.
And like, I saw the place and I was like, I love this place. I want it. And I told the guy, I was like, I stayed to the last person. It was kind of like a condo that somebody specifically rented out or something like that. But so there wasn't like a leasing office or anything like that. But the guy who met me there was the guy property managing it. And anyways, I waited around till everybody else left. And I was like, okay, I'm filling out my application like right now, sending it in. And then within like a couple hours it's approved. And they're like, well, still open until you send in your deposit. And so I wire the deposit immediately after that, right? Because I created that FOMO. I was like, I want this place right now, right? So it's really powerful.
Yeah, no. And speaking of that, right, because they did the whole, you need to send in your deposit. And they do that because lots of people will send in applications. And again, this is something that could be even for the next episode, but do not take down the apartment from your website until you have that deposit, or else your manager or yourself, whoever is listing the apartments, you're going to do a lot of back and forth on
for the holding fee now.
Yeah, back and forth. And you just avoid that with all costs. Another topic/tip that also goes along with this that we talked about is like upselling residents into nicer apartments. So like the property manager or yourself or whomever is showing them the apartment, and you could do like, but for $100 more, you could rent this nicer apartment, or you don't even have to add the money part. You could be like, let me show you a recent upgrade in one of our newer apartments, right? And so actually I like that much better. So you do that, you get them in the apartment, and then that's when you could do like for only $100 more, you could rent this apartment. Because when you're in the nicer, it could actually be the same, but just different, could be different appliances. I don't really know. You'll have to figure all those ideas out on your own. It could just be like newly renovated, so the carpet is new, but you really get them to enjoy that new space more.
Absolutely. And again, I got another story for you guys.
I like
fell victim to this again, again, Colorado Springs. And I was at it. They were renovating like half of the property, whatever. And the leasing agent was like, hey, here, I'll show you. Oh, here's the 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom. I forget what I was looking at the time. Here's what it would be, if it wasn't upgraded. Went in there. Of course, it's like 1990s dated. This is like 2015 or 16 or something like that. It's like 1990s dated, maybe 80s. Who knows? But I feel like it had shag carpet. Not really, but
was it green?
No, it wasn't green. But it's like dated, right? Wood like dark wood countertops, like really dark and dingy. Like that was the style back then or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, this is this amount per month." She's like, "But if you want to spend $150 more a month or $100 a month, I forget what it was." She's like, I'll show you. We have, we might have one upgrade available. So she took me to that, and I was like, well, this is amazing. I want to stay. I'll pay the extra $100 for this, right? Nice white cabinets, granite countertops, brand new carpet, bright finishes and things like that. I was like, I want to live here. This is like actually brings up my energy versus bringing down my energy, right? And so that's a really good tactic as well.
So we have 2 left. So stay with us, right? Because these 2, I think, are also like equally very, very, very important. So like, right, since we're still talking about like, how can we get their residents actually into the door? I want to bring this one up. It's like the following up on the tours. So yes, this is property management based, but it's also resident based. So like the reason you want to follow up with the tours immediately, whether that's the same day or the next morning, because you want to stay top of mind. Like you want the property to stay top of mind. You want the property manager to feel like you care. Like, hi, I had a really great time showing the apartment to you yesterday. I feel like this is a perfect place for you to live. What are your thoughts on it right now? When can we schedule your move-in date? You really want to try to avoid like the yes, no, like, oh, is this a place you think you'll move into? No, like, when are we scheduling your move-in date? I'm so excited for you to be at the next resident event. All of these things, like if they have a family, like, oh, our next resident event, for example, we did a huge Easter egg hunt at some of the properties. Like, I think it would be great
If you and your kids are here.
Yeah, if you and your kids are here, I was going to say a name like Johnny or Susie, because that's like traditionally what my brother and I used to always get. Like, I think they'd be a great fit. We have other age kids about this. You don't need to go on and on and on and on, but just figure out the verbiage that would work best for that resident. And your property manager might need a little help with that creativity, because we expect our property manager to be all of these really great different things and wear all these multiple hats, but sometimes they need help figuring out if the hat fits. So just help them a little bit with that. Cool. And then so last but not least, this one I think is really great. It kind of ties in to resident events, but it's more of like it could be more of like a lunch and learn kind of thing, but like learning sessions for the residents. So an example of this is that, this is all property based, right? Like, you have a problem with your property and it's caused because of the residents, but are the residents informed of how to make that problem go away? So sewage backups is a huge thing at a lot of properties. So if the manager, like, yes, you should be doing it when you move in. But again, like, we don't want to just touch them at the beginning and then touch them at the end, because they could move out for a sewage problem. Like, my toilet was backed up all the time, or my shower was clogged all the time. Actually, let's use kitchen too. My kitchen was clogged often. Well, let's tell the residents, like, hey, those flushable wipes are not meant for the toilet. They're meant for your trash can. Lard and grease is not meant to be dumped down the drain.
Just because it's liquid when it's hot doesn't mean it's liquid when it's cold.
Yeah, whether I don't like bacon, wherever all the grease comes from, exactly. We don't want that. For the shower, especially with hair, I'm a great example of that. We have like a drain stopper, because the clogs are nasty. It starts to smell, hair starts to smell, all of the things. So you could do resident learning sessions. You could make something fun out of it in your newsletter, but you want to find ways to touch the residents to inform them of these things. You don't want to get on calls every month or even every week or every day if you talk to your manager through a property management software, but that's not true. You don't want to see sewer come up over and over and over. And a big thing for this too is that, like, the more expenses that you have that were preventable, when it comes to your refi or to the time of sale, you would have wished you started thinking about them from the very beginning. And this is a very easy way to think about them at the beginning so that your T12 doesn't reflect it. You want to get ahead of it quickly, but you also want to get ahead of it because of the ripple that occurs with the residents who are being like preventable and actionable versus the residents who aren't. If there are 6 families that share the same building, but it's pretty split like 50-50, like the 50% that are not pouring stuff down the drain or having hair clogged, they do get affected by the people who do, because they share all of the same pipes at the end of the curb, lawn, whatever you want to call it.
It's just, that's just an ongoing battle. I think it's just a struggle at a lot of properties. Yeah, I guess one thing that you could do potentially if you're having, the sewer issues and things like that, not only you making sure that the manager informs the residents, but also if you have to have continuous jetting your property, maybe that goes back on the residents, right? That's part of like a amenity fee or something like that, right? So
yeah, because you could get to that point and even let the residents know, like, hey, we have to implement this, because even with, all of the learning sessions that we had, nothing has changed, and nothing influences people more by having their money taken away. So but we want to try to avoid that. Cool. So I made up my own multifamily myth buster. Woo! For the day.
Let's hear it.
Michael doesn't know it yet, so we'll see how this goes.
See if I can bust this.
So it's not really multifamily related. It's more because, like, with asset management, it is a very, I don't want to say like solo place. Like right now, a lot of the gurus, right, they talk about acquisitions. And Michael and I just found that we were having a really difficult time finding asset management workshops, asset management conferences, like places where we could ask people about asset management. So with that, my Mythbuster is asking for help means you don't know what you're doing.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah. So is that a myth or is it true?
It's
a myth? Yeah, it's just like the people who are scared to ask questions, right? And when you're growing in school because you don't want to feel like you
have the wrong answer.
Or that you come across as not knowing what you're talking about, right? So yeah, I think even for us, like we still ask Susie and I, like we know a lot about asset management. Do we know everything? Absolutely not. Are we learning new marketing techniques? Yeah. Do we learn more stuff today I learned things too from Susie talking, which is awesome, and things that we're going to implement, right? And like asking questions to your property manager, because guess what? They've been doing it a lot longer than you have probably, right? Or at least the property management company has been. And so it's not always bad to ask questions, right?
Yeah, something that I loved about England is that we had tea time, and that was really a time to collaborate with your colleagues, right? Like you don't see that in the US at all. I mean, maybe you do in companies that are much more like innovative, but it just comes a time like, hey, I'm coming up to this challenge. Have you come up to this challenge before? It doesn't matter what it is, right? Like we all have challenges every day. And so it's wonderful to have the confidence to know that you can ask a question. And someone might not know the answer either, but they might be able to get you to a person who does. And that's, right, a gift in itself.
Absolutely. 100%. Cool. Before we end the show, I want to put this out to our Ventures family because I'm trying to, I'm going to say recruit, but I'm trying to find more seasoned asset managers. So if you're listening to this show and you're a seasoned asset manager, please reach out to Susie or I, or both of us, via however you want to reach out. Email, text, website. There's a contact form. Contact us on our website at venturerei.com. You can find us on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can find our email addresses and things like that.
Just so that we
smoke signals, however.
Yeah, like we don't want to have to wait once a year. Like I don't know if GoBundance is going to put this on again, but like we want to create a space where we can meet monthly or weekly or even just have an ongoing chat so that we can even talk about the things that I talked about today or issues that'll come up in the future. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, so that's the plan, to get a small group of people together, maybe 10 or 15 folks at the most, and just kind of get on a Zoom call, chat about asset management things that you're going through, right? Because everybody has different experiences, and Susie and I are always looking to learn, right? So, and it kind of goes along with the myth, right? So we're always asking for help, learning new techniques and new ways to asset manage. So please reach out to us.
Yeah, because we always, right, we're trying to make a better community for the residents. We're trying to make a great place for these property managers to work, and we want to make great returns for our investors. Like, let's come together and find more ways to do that.
Absolutely. So until next time, explore more. Adventure awaits.